Well, my first memory is when I got there and it was 99 degrees at midnight. And I was just thinking, this is gonna be something else. I remember riding in the taxi, and it's a little bit of a white knuckle experience, your first time in traffic in Delhi especially. They're a little liberal with their driving techniques and the rules of the road, but I never saw an accident the whole time I was there. I remember as we were walking across the street and a bus came around the corner real tight and just brushed up against my shoulder. I just remember it startled me, it scared my trainer to death. He thought I was dead. He got this brand new American and he thought he'd just killed me my first day with him. The biggest vehicle has the right of way always. And there's a lot of street dogs in India, you'll see them everywhere. And most of them are just nice. I'm a big fan of dogs, so I didn't have any issue. They'd trot right up to you, you'd pat them on the head and they go their way. You don't have to worry about them. But I remember there's this one street dog in particular that just didn't like us. And this street dog slept right in the middle of the path that we walked past to get home every single day as we were walking to our apartment, and he would just sleep right in the middle of the path. He'd always be asleep, and so I remember my companion, who was terrified of dogs, would always inch his way up against the wall all the way around this dog to get past it. I remember one day, I think I was just in a good mood. So I remember as we were walking down this pathway past this dog, I just took off running and I jumped straight over the dog instead of walking around it. And as I landed, I remember hearing it barking, and at the same instance it barked, I heard my companion scream. And I just remember I started laughing, and I was laughing, the dog was barking, my companion's yelling, and once one street dog starts barking, they all start barking, and there were probably 5 or 6 street dogs that all just converged chasing after me. And I was just having a good time, and I think my companion thought I was dead. I think he left me for dead, that's for sure. He wasn't coming after me. But that was all right. That was pretty fun. It turned out all right. Eventually I stopped running, and the dogs caught up to me, and I patted a few of them on the head, petted them, and it was totally normal. It was just like a normal day. There's always cows walking down the streets. You'll always see that. I remember on occasion, one of them was just being mean. It was a big old bull, and it was not happy. I remember as we walked towards it, kind of getting a little bit of anxiety of like, all right, like, you know, it's like rule number 1, you don't mess with the cows in India. You just don't. And so like walking towards it and kind of seeing how everyone was nervous around it. Usually seeing a cow in India, it's like seeing a dog here in the U.S. It's like seeing a dog on a leash here in the U.S. They're as docile as they come, just domesticated. And you just kind of ignore them. You could brush shoulders with them and you wouldn't, it's normal. But on this occasion, I remember this bull was just not having it. And he was running at people and he'd stop a couple feet away. And it seemed like he was just doing it just to see him jump almost. I don't know what it was or what was going on. But as me and my companion were walking kind of towards this bull, it just locked eyes with us, and it was coming for us. And I remember telling my companion, don't run, it'll chase you. Like, just don't run. Like, stand your ground. And I remember him saying, Elder, that works for dogs, not now. Like, let's run. And in the split second between when it started coming and I was about to grab my companion and say stay, he had already taken off. He was gone. So there's no way I was sticking around. So, yep, I remember running from a bull. It felt like I was in Spain doing the running of the bulls. Was it the Pamplona or whatever? But that was one that got my heart racing pretty good. So I'm sure there were plenty of people that got a good laugh out of the big white boy running away from that bull. When they celebrate Holi, Holi's the festival of colors. It's kind of the springtime festival, rebirth. And it's celebrated, there's lots of colored chalks or dyed water that they'll put in water balloons or squirt guns. And basically it's just a celebration of throwing these colors at each other. Everyone dresses usually all in white and you play Holi. You just go out and you throw colors at each other. And that's the festival, that's the celebration. You just know you're gonna get it. I mean, you're walking around outside in a white shirt and tie and you know it's coming. And there's usually like these 4 or 5 story buildings all around you, and you're watching out, you're keeping an eye out. Even a couple days before the official day of Holi, you gotta keep your eyes open because people are practicing with their water balloons. They're getting ready. They're dialing in their aim. So you'll get full on pink chalk just dusted one day, like 3 days before Holi. So you gotta keep an eye out. I think I went through 7 shirts that day, just because you'd be on your way to an appointment, and on the way there, you'd get powdered and dusted, and then a water balloon, and all that chalk is now wet, and it just stains your shirt. But everyone's having a good time, and you're enjoying it. And then let's say you go home for lunch, you change out your shirt, you get a new nice fresh shirt on, and you think, surely they can't be celebrating still. Like, everyone has to be done by now. I mean, it's well into the afternoon, and it's not 5 seconds out the door, and I get hit by another dyed water balloon, and you just have purple spots all down your back. And that was a fun one to enjoy and really just get into the celebration of it, and really enjoy the culture and have a good time with it. While I was there, I definitely had a solid Indian accent. I don't know if I can conjure it up on the spot. Every time people ask me to, it comes out pretty terrible. It sounds really, really bad when I try and force it. There's definitely kind of a different canter to the way they speak. Everyone, whether they speak English or not, you'll hear them, as you walk down the street, you'll hear the children say, "How are you?" "I'm fine." But it's one phrase. They don't ask it as a question. It's, "How are you?" "I'm fine." How are you?" "I'm fine." Or, "My name is," and they'll say their name. "What's yours?" Just like these little phrases that they've learned in school, and everyone knows it. So you'll hear a lot of that. I mean, yeah, traditional greeting in India is namaste. You'll hear that a lot. Namaste, how are you? Where are you from? Why are you here? There's kind of a lot of, I don't know if you can tell, but there's a lot of this kind of, kind of halting way of speaking, but I don't know. It's hard to do. If I'm talking on the phone to one of my friends back in India, then it comes naturally. It'll just come. I don't have to think about it. It's just there. But normally, if I try and do it on my own, it's kind of ugly. Like you can see, it's not very good if I try and force it. If you watch a Bollywood movie, you'll get a really good idea. You'll get a really good idea of how they speak, especially their English, their Hindi. Even when they're speaking in Hindi, there's a lot of English thrown in. And when they're speaking in English, every once in a while there's a Hindi word or two thrown in. So there's a lot of blending that goes on. There's different languages. Every state has their own language, and so that kind of carries its own accent with it. And then depending on the area, where I was at, it was very Hindi strong, but you'll find areas, especially in Delhi, where it's lots of Tamil or Telugu. Those are kind of the big 3 languages that are spoken, other than English, is Hindi, Tamil, and Telugu, and each of them has their own styles, their own speaking English. They all have their own English accent, I guess. I did not understand how much of a treat I was in for with Indian food. In a few words, it was amazing. It was spicy, it was hot. You have your classics, you have your butter chicken, you have your dal makhani. A lot of it's chicken. You're gonna get chicken curries and chicken fry. With the chicken curry, it's basically just a gravy you put over rice that's made with onions, tomatoes, seasoning. You basically just blend it all up and cook it until it's all stewed together into a gravy. And up north, it's pretty common to eat it with bread. They'll make their naan, their rotis, their chapatis, parathas, parotas, a huge variety of different breads that they'll eat these curries with. Their sabji, it means vegetable in Hindi. It's basically stewed vegetables that they've seasoned and put together. And that's something you'll eat a lot. One of my favorites was Pani Bootie, which it's basically it's a hollow ball, a little shell. What they do is they'll take that ball and they'll punch a hole in it, and they'll fill it with potato, onions, different ingredients depending on where you go. And then they'll usually put in a hot sauce, a hot red chili sauce, and a cooler kind of creamy sauce. I don't know how to describe it. They'll put those into it in just smaller amounts, and then they'll take it and dip it into water that's been seasoned, masala water. It'll usually be a greenish color based on the seasoning, and they'll fill up the ball the rest of the way to the top with this water. And you basically just pop it in your mouth and put it all down in one go, and it's so good. It's crunchy from the ball, and then you just get this burst of seasoning, of just spice and flavor, and it burns the back of your throat a little bit, and makes your eyes water, your nose run a little bit the first time you have it. But it's so good. That was one of my favorites. And it's cold. The water itself will be kind of cold, so it adds an interesting dimension to it. Oh, there's so much. Rajma. Rajma is basically like our chili. Like we have a chili con carne, beans and beef chili. Then they have a rajma without the beef, because there's no beef. If you're going to Delhi, there's no beef. Just forget about it when you get on the plane, and don't worry about it till you get home. But it'll just be this bean chili that you'll eat, and it's good. The seasonings are so rich and complex and overpowering in everything you eat. One of my favorites, it's called an anda paratha, which is egg paratha. Now, paratha is a bread they make that's about the size of a dinner plate, maybe a little bit bigger. And they cook it on these massive flat skillets with oil. You know, as they roll it out, as they're rolling out the dough, they'll mix different things into the dough as they're actually rolling it out. You'll have cumin and cilantro and maybe like some paneer, which is kind of like a cheese that they'll mix into the dough as they roll it out. So the bread itself has the seasonings in it. And then what they'll do with the anda paratha is, as they're cooking it, as the bread's getting fully cooked, they'll actually kind of slice it open as it puffs up a little bit, and they'll pour, for lack of a better word, just eggs into it that they've scrambled. And then they cook the eggs inside of the bread, and it kind of fills out through the whole bread. And so you'll have this round bread about the size of the dinner plate, about half-inch thick, that's just full of eggs and seasoning. And then you take that and you eat it with a curry. Again, you don't even just eat that plain. You're dipping it in a curry and in sauces, and you're eating that with a chutney, which is kind of like an Indian salsa that you'll eat it with. That's one of my favorites. What else? Momos. You can't miss momos. They're like a dumpling, basically. It's a little steamed dumpling that's either full of chicken or vegetables or a little bit of both. And you can get them steamed, or you can get them fried, deep fried in oil. It depends on where you go to get them. There'll be momo stands everywhere throughout the city. So you can try a couple and get your favorite, whichever one. But the momos are served with a side of chili sauce, which I don't know what they put into it, but it tastes like they just blended the chilies straight in. Just red chilies, and it's hot. Just the straight chili sauce is really, really hot. And so they also serve it with another side of, they call it mayonnaise. It looks a little bit like Elmer's glue at first. It's not like real mayonnaise, but that's what they call it. And it's basically just a cream sauce to help cool down the chili as you dip it. And so those are really good. Those are one of my first loves too, as far as Indian cuisine. And they call that Chinese food. I don't know if it actually came from China or Nepal or where it came from, but that's everywhere. There's a lot to choose from in India. Well, you know, Christmas is celebrated in India. It's not the big holiday, though. It kind of takes a backseat to Diwali or Holi or any of the other big major Hindu festivals. I remember just with our apartment mates. There were 6 of us in the apartment, and I just remember we all decided about a week before we were gonna do something, whatever it was. We were gonna get gifts for each other. I just remember waking up that morning, and one elder for his gift had bought a box of cereal, and he'd pre-poured it into all the bowls, And he'd put milk in all the bowls also as a Christmas morning treat. But he'd gotten so excited he did it at about 5:45. And most of us woke up at 6:30. So it was a little soggy by the time we got around to it. But, you know, it's the thought that counts. That was a native elder, yes. I don't think he didn't like cereal, so he'd never bought it before, but he knew the Americans loved their cereal, and they loved it with milk. So it was a very kind gesture. Luckily, one of the other elders also decided to make breakfast as his Christmas gift, and his was, he found wheat toast and jam. And so we had some soggy cocoa roux, I think they were, and some wheat toast with jam for our Christmas morning breakfast, and it was great. It was really good. It was a good Christmas. It just went uphill from there, as you can imagine. Probably the biggest thing for anyone traveling to India, you want your shoes to be pretty easy to take on or take off and put on. Whenever you go into someone's house, whenever you go to a temple per se to visit some historical structures, you're going to remove your shoes. It's just a common thing there, because otherwise you're just going to be skinning your knuckles trying to slip your heel on and off every day. As far as health goes, especially for your first few days, depending on how long you'll be there, or your first few months, be very cautious about where you eat from or what you eat. There are so many places that are so good, and also so many places that are delicious, but probably require a acclimated stomach that's probably a good term. It takes an acclimated stomach to enjoy certain dishes. So I'd say take your time, for sure. Be cautious, especially with what you choose to eat and where you choose to eat. But yeah, I mean, go heavy on spices, enjoy it. I mean, a little bit eyes watering, you know, it's worth it. It's worth it. Don't hold back on that regard. Just don't eat Momos from the street stand next to the pack of street dogs the first day. You know, leave that for month 6 or 7. A surprise later on. When you cross the street, you got to cross the street confidently. You can't be timid in crossing the street. Of course, you look both ways. And of course, you don't want to walk into oncoming traffic. But every now and then, and I don't know if this is good advice or not, but it's what I did and it worked, you just got to go. You got to set a speed for yourself and you got to start walking, and traffic will flow around you. It sounds kind of scary and kind of terrible, but that's how it works, honestly, most of the time. You just kind of got to go, and they'll see you, hopefully, and they'll move. Unless it's a bus. This does not ever apply to buses, ever. This is for motorcycles and autos and small vehicles only. But yeah, be careful with traffic for sure. In India, they have what they call Heshes. They're transgender beggars, so to speak. They're out in the streets. They're usually men that dress up as women, and they go from vehicle to vehicle begging for money. And as Indian lore or superstition has it, they were cursed or they were born that way. They're in an unfortunate circumstance, so giving them money gives you good luck or good karma. And so it's a good thing to give them money to help them out, which is true of all beggars, basically. I mean, helping them out is always a good thing. But the opposite end of that superstition is that if you don't give them money, they can curse you. There was one time there were 4 of us elders riding in the back of an auto, and they're open-air autos, like the doors, there aren't doors on them, and you just kind of slide into the bench and you all sit down. So we're at a stoplight and we're sitting there waiting to go through, and we see a Heshi coming through the cars, and they're easy to pick out because they'll walk around clapping like this, which becomes really creepy after you've seen it a few times. And I remember one of the Indian elders saying, just pretend you're asleep. Like, just pretend you're asleep, they'll leave you alone. And so it was one Indian elder and 3 Americans all sitting in this auto. So all of us kind of lay back and pretend we're asleep. All of us at the exact same time. And she makes a beeline for us, or she makes a beeline for us, coming right at us, and gets to the opening of the auto, and she's clapping, looking right at us, and just waiting for us. And we're all like kind of squinting to our eyes, like No one wants to be the first one to make a move. No one wants to be the one that gets, gets singled out by this Heshi. And it sits there for a second, just kind of looking at us. And then it kind of starts to lean into the auto, and all of us tense up and lean back, except for one elder. And he was going for an Oscar. He wanted to get the Academy Award. He was full on acting that he was out. Eyes closed, no flinching, no nothing. And this Heshi leans right in and just plants one right on his mouth. And oh man, I thought the auto was going to tip over. We were laughing so hard. I mean, you can't imagine how funny that was, that this Heshi just kissed this elder right on the mouth.